Hey, second grade science writers, welcome to writing lesson 7. Today we're going to continue working on our water evaporation lab report. It's the report that we started yesterday. Remember yesterday, page 1, you made a question. What happens if we leave water uncovered in the sun? On page 2, you created a hypothesis, and there were some great guesses based on what you know about science. On page 3, you listed out your materials, telling exactly the things that you needed to complete this experiment. And then, during your independent writing, on page 4, you wrote specific steps to the procedure. You said exactly what we needed to do first, and then second, and then third. I loved seeing those great procedures, and I hope many of you were able to follow those procedures and try this experiment out on your own. But if you didn't have the materials at home, that's okay. I went ahead and followed the steps that you wrote and shared with me and did the experiment. Today we get to move on to step 5, or page 5 in your lab report, which is the results. That's where we share what exactly happened during our experiment. This is where we use those specific numbers and exact details to tell exactly what happened. When scientific writers share the results of their experiment, sometimes they use text features, and today we're going to talk about how to use a very specific text feature that scientists use a lot, a chart. Today you're going to be able to say, I can use a chart to develop information about my experiment. In order to create our chart though, first you need to know what happened. I'm going to share with you the results of the experiment I did, but if you were able to do this experiment at home, I want you to use your results. First, let's take a look at the jar with the lid. So this is a jar that I put 1 cup of water in, screwed the lid on, and put it in a sunny place. Here's what it looks like after I left it in the jar. Did anything change? It didn't really, did it? There is still 1 cup of water left in that jar. I put the blue food coloring in so you could see it really well. And I used a kind of jar that has some markings on it. Notice how the water goes right up to the 1. That's 1 cup. So I could write that like this, 1 cup. Let's take a look at what happened to the jar that did not have a lid on it. This jar was placed in the exact same location in the window where there was sun. Notice that the water only comes up to the half cup mark. So I'm going to write down that I had a half cup, that there's a half cup of water in there. It looks like some of the water went away, and now I only have a half cup left. I'm going to write those results, but I also want to put those in the form of a chart. So I'm going to show you how to create a chart to help share the results of your experiment. All right, now that I have my lab report ready, I'm going to flip to the page that I need to share my results. So I'm going to go past my question. There's my hypothesis. I've written my materials. I've listed the steps of the procedure. So on the last page that I have, I'm going to write the results. At the top, I'm going to label it with results, just like we've been doing on all of the other pages. Now I'm going to show you how to make a text feature, a chart, to help share your results. Since I'm using the second grade writing paper, I'm going to use the sketch box at the top. If you're using blank paper, you can put your box wherever you want. So the first thing you're going to do when you make a chart is you want to make a box. You want to make it pretty big. So I'm going to make it take up almost that whole space in my sketch box. At the bottom, I want to tell the 2 different options that I had. Remember, I had a jar with a lid and a jar without a lid. So I'm going to write that down here. With lid, and I'm going to write no lid because I think I have more room for that. I'm going to separate that from my box, and then I'm going to draw a line between the 2, like that. Now, on the side, I want to list some of the options that it could have been. Remember how my jar, if you look carefully at my jar, it has different measurements labeled? I want to put those labels over here. So there was a 1/4 of a cup, and I'm going to abbreviate and use a C for cup. There was a 1/2 a cup. There was 1 cup. And there was 1 1/2 cups.
So all of those were measurements that could have happened in my experiment. So when you make a chart to share your results, you give several of the options that could have probably happened during your experiment. But then you want to share the exact details. So the specific numbers and exact details. Do you remember what the water level was with the lid from my experiment? That's right, it was 1 cup. So I'm going to draw a line where it says 1 cup, and I'm going to shade it in. Later on, I might add some color because I think color makes things more interesting. Do you remember what the water level was with no lid? That's right, it was a 1/2 cup. So I'm going to find where the line for 1/2 cup would be. I'm going to draw the line right here, and I'm going to shade that in. Now, if you did an experiment at your house and you had different results, that's okay. You're going to make a chart that reflects the results that you had. Okay, writers, you know what time it is. Your turn. Here's your job during independent writing. You're going to label the next page of your booklet Results. You're going to study the results of our experiment. You can study my results, or if you did this experiment at home, you can study your results. Create a chart to show the results. Remember how I created my chart and use that to help you create your chart. You can always re-watch this video if you need help remembering. Then I want you to write about your results. Be sure to use exact details and numbers. So not only are you going to have a chart, but you're going to write and tell others what happened as well. Okay? Head off, create a chart, and write about the results of your experiment. Don't forget to come back and reflect on your lesson and tell us what you did. Have fun!